Hello, everyone. I'm Natasha Garcha, Senior Director of Impact Investment Exchange, leading our sustainable finance practice. And I am deeply honored to be addressing the Ocean Pavilion at COP30 this year, focused on women as solutions for the blue economy. And this is a very important topic because the blue economy is actually a big solution to the twin crisis of climate change and conflict. So what's at stake? The cost of conflict is $14 trillion per annum. Climate change is a threat multiplier of over 40% of the conflicts. The price of peace is 23.7 million climate refugees, and the climate funding gap is $7.4 trillion per annum, with the cost of inaction of whopping $34 billion in losses and damages. And the blue economy sequesters a third of our carbon. Mangroves are a critical example of a resilient asset that can actually reverse this tipping point that we find ourselves at. And so it is absolutely essential to, in light of this, be talking about how we can use the blue economy, accelerate solutions, and not only solve climate change, but also mitigate the risk of conflict. Now, why am I talking about women in this context and why now? One of the key facts I'll share with you is when women lead restoration initiatives, including mangrove restoration, survival rates increase by up to 20 to 30% based on comparative community projects globally. And this is absolutely significant because this means the lived experiences and the unique insights women have as natural stewards of natural and nature-based solutions, it can be critical to these solutions working, being better funded, being more effective, and reversing these trends, not only strengthening the social fabric, but also ensuring that funding flows are best utilized. With that in mind, I would also, on the other side, like to talk about gender finance having significant gaps and us being 300 years away from achieving gender equality, according to the United Nations. UN SDG 5 on gender equality and UN SDG 14, Life Below Water, are among the lowest funded SDGs across the 17 goals that we have for 2030. Now, when you decode the DNA of financial markets, you see the big gaps that arise that are affecting both these gender and blue related solutions are firstly a lack of a systematic approach. We need capital and policy to be working together more hand in hand. A lack of inclusive leadership, where you see very few indigenous groups and people from the global south, and of course, women having decision-making ability. And then a lack of transparency on how funding is used and how policy translates into effective action on the ground. And that's where the Orange Movement comes in. The Orange Movement mobilizes capital for gender equality and climate security. And I am delighted to share that in 2025, already $1.3 billion of capital has been committed, 3.5 million women and girls have been empowered, and we have over 290,000 signatories from all 6 continents, making it one of the fastest growing asset classes, the most effective on the ground, and the most inclusive across the world. And gender equality and climate action lend the colors to the movement of orange and green. Now, of course, blue is a very important part of this because orange is a cross-cutting asset class. We do not think any solutions across the SDGs will work if half the population is left out. And this, of course, extends to the blue economy as well, where we see women playing critical roles on everything from having increased role in STEM, in science and research. We see women playing role in sustainable fisheries across the value chain, particularly in the middle of the value chain in processing and protection. And most importantly, we see them in nature-based solutions where they have absolutely critical insights into how you can protect the land, the air, and the sea. And with that in mind, I invite everyone to design blue investments with a gender lens. Now, the ways that we should be thinking about this is from a financial perspective. We should be thinking about how finance can design more thematic bonds, how we can have not just green bonds, which I'm sure you've all heard of, but orange and blue bonds as well, where the use of proceeds is designed to make sure it goes in the hands of women, and those women are empowered to affect nature-based solutions, sustainable fisheries, and ocean resilience, from marine protected areas to mangroves, need funding critically. And capital markets is a $5 trillion pool of funding that you can tap into. Blended finance is another key solution where we see this is very, very critical because blended finance means you are using capital from the public sector and the philanthropic sector to de-risk investments and leverage in far more scale of capital from the private sector Case in point, the green and orange bond that I did recently was oversubscribed by private sector investors. We had pension funds, large asset managers, family offices from across the world participate. But we were able to do this because we had a concessional subordinated debt letter backed by the IFC and Australia's Minderoo Foundation. And we had a guarantee from the Swedish International Development Agency, a wonderful way to see how across the spectrum of financial actors, you can blend finance for blue and orange. And then the last financial example I will give is debt for nature swaps. And you're seeing debt for nature swaps being a very effective way where countries in the global south or emerging and frontier markets are protecting nature and get debt relief from their external lenders, other countries across the world who all benefit from nature protection because climate change knows no borders. And this is a very powerful way for us to rethink the value of finance. Now, from the policy perspective, I'll talk about three solutions as well. Blue carbon markets have to go hand in hand with traditional carbon markets. If we do not capture blue carbon sequestered by solutions such as mangroves, we will be bereft in building out these carbon markets to truly tap into nature-based solutions and their strength. We will also see a rise in corporate climate levies. And I think this has been pioneered by countries like Mauritius. And I think this is a very important way of holding corporates accountable, corporates who have big footprints on the countries and the global south from a climate perspective and can be held responsible and in fact also receive positive incentives to do better and protect the environment better through their supply chains, their workforce, their products, and their services. And then finally, there's climate diplomacy. And you're all at COP, you understand why that's important, why that's critical, why we need countries negotiating for climate with a gender lens, because climate policies have lasted longer and are better adopted and quicker adopted in countries where there is gender equal participation. This is an absolutely fascinating finding because on the conflict side, bringing this conversation full circle, you'll also see countries are less prone to interstate conflict aggravated by climate change if they are more gender equal. A very, very powerful data point for us. It is gender equality is a greater predictor of climate security than a nation's own footprint in terms of GDP, in terms of democracy, in terms of latitude. So it is a very, very powerful way we can move forward together. And I leave you all with your role to break the silos between gender and climate for mangrove protection, the silos between risk, return, and impact for transparent investments, and the silos between capital and policy for a more resilient future. I'll leave you with the story of Ares and Athena. Athena was the goddess of war, and Ares was the god of war. And while Ares won his battles with bloodshed, Athena did so with wisdom. And this is the Athenian edge that women bring to the table through their unique lived experiences and their insights and their strong ties to natural ecosystems that we must all leverage more effectively. We must bring them in at every level of decision-making and leadership to the grassroots leaders. Thank you all very much for your time, your consideration. I hope you all leverage your Athenian edge during the Ocean Pavilion of COP30. More power to you.